Hello and welcome everyone to the opening day of the Unbox Summit 2022 presented by Amdocs India Innovation Team. I thank you for joining us from Amdocs and also the people outside Amdocs who are with us on LinkedIn Live right now. We are so grateful that you have decided to spend time with us this hour. And I'll brief you about the summit. So it's a series of 4 insightful events scheduled each day, and is focused to build an entrepreneurship mindset within organization. Now introducing myself, I am Vibhuti from New Tech Unit in Amdocs, also a design thinking practitioner, and will be your host for today. Please do join me in welcoming Kamal Kant, and that he's from Amdocs, and our eminent guest speaker, Samiran Ghosh. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Right. I would just take a few minutes to talk on why we chose business viability and idea to market fit as a keynote to the summit today. So let me take a fact from 1955. I don't think so. Many of us here were born then. So this was the year when the Fortune 500 companies were listed for the first time, the year of inception of Fortune 500. A question to wonder is, how many companies have maintained their position till today since 1955? You might guess within yourselves, but an interesting fact is only 52 companies. So only 52 companies have maintained out of 500 to be on the list today, till today. So few of the names that I can remember is General Motors and General Electric, GE, and IBM to name. There could be many more. I am not sure about all the names. So the question is, why do so many companies fail to maintain their position? Or let me put it in this way. What makes this 52 corporations so special? How did they manage to stay relevant till date? The common thing that was observed across these companies was their ability to innovate and adapt the evolving landscape. Again, this brings out another question. Does every innovation bring success? Maybe not. Just an innovation gives no guarantee. There are many famous failed innovation or products that market has seen. Any examples of famous failed idea or product that you recall? So for the people who have joined us with on LinkedIn, do share your responses in the comments, whenever we have a question. So again, I'll put my question. Do you remember any of the famous failed innovation products or any companies that have come up with a great product, but then they failed? Now, the reason to fail may not be just limited to a bad product or idea, but even something else, they were way ahead of its time to be desired by people. This reminds me of one of the examples. Yes, someone said Tata Nano. And, the Nokia Windows smartphones, I see it on my chat. Yes. And one of the examples that I think of is Google Glass. Now, Google might consider bringing back today, but when they were launched, they saw a disappointing sale. And it was clear that the consumers did not need such glasses at that point of time. So this is a lesson. Not every innovation is a success. Apparently, for an innovation to be successful, there are 3 essential tenets. Number 1, people desirability. 2, business viability. And the last, technology feasibility. I know these tenets sound too heavy. To simplify them, in a sentence, I would say, merging what people want or need with a viable business model and an accessible technology. Imagine something that is not even accessible to people would not make any sense to us. Now, this reaches us, or this let us, unlock the innovation sweet spot. Yes, the innovation sweet spot, You might have seen this in the banners that we have been circulating to market this talk today to you. We are here in the event to discover and unlock the innovation sweet spot. Before we deep dive into opening keynote session, just a few words to introduce and invite our Head of Customer Growth from Amdocs Optima, Kamal Sharma, to officially launch this summit. I would just take a few minutes to introduce him. So Kamal has been working with us in Amdocs for splendid 21 years. And he has worked at Amdocs Cyprus, USA, and India. He's always in search of new crazy ideas, and he's excited when thinking differently on problems and solutions. In Amdocs, he has been building teams and enabling customers to grow. Glad to have you, Kamal. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Vibhuti, for the kind introduction and having me here. So it's my pleasure to address this gathering. On behalf of Amdocs India, I would like to officially launch the Unbox Summit 2022. You know, from the innovation perspective, to understand, as you also mentioned, every innovation to be successful, there are 4 principles in my view. I would like to add one. The first one is the people desirability. So this basically tests whether your innovation is solving the right customer problem. That's the basic. Now, look at the 2 markets. One is the car sharing, which is emerging, and also the electric cars. Now, if you look at it, the customer problem is the environment impact of petrol and diesel driven cars, as well as the cost of the ownership of the car. I always look at Tesla, which is one of the most innovative company on the planet. They solve the first problem by electric cars. But what about the cost of ownership? Can everyone have a luxury to have Tesla parked in front of their house? No.
At least not yet, yeah.
Yeah, so then later on what they did, they basically came up with a concept of autonomous cars, which they are still working on. And that car can drive others after dropping the owner. So this is like desirability and connecting to what people basically, are you solving the right problem and thinking about this and passing this test when you're thinking about the innovation. The second is about the business viability. This test is basically a value chain, testing the value chain in the long-term sustainability, which is the market fit, whether your product is fitting the market or not. Can it scale large? Can you make a big profitable business out of it? And here also I give an example of Tesla, that they helped to build the infrastructure to support the drivers when they're going on the long drives. So not only giving the product, but also making sure that it's business viable. Then the third one is the technology feasibility. Obviously, this is very important to make sure and pass this test, that whether your innovation is strengthening your business. And technology feasibility, I believe, is something that is different for different individuals, for different companies, for different corporates. It doesn't mean that if something is feasible for me, can be feasible for you as well. And again, if you see the Tesla example, when they came up with this car sharing service, they're not competing with Uber directly, because they believe that they need to focus on what is their strength and what is feasible for them. And the fourth one, which I would like to add into this equation, is the integrity and the impact, because of the to the society and to the planet that we are living in. I mean, this is an angle that we cannot overlook anymore. And the example which comes to my mind is the plastic water bottle business. If you look at this, this covers all the 3 desirability aspects. You know, summers are coming. Water is something that we need all the time, and we need it portable to take it out with us. Business viability is there, technology feasibility. There are many companies who are doing it. But is it also creating the impact and the integrity, and is it giving back to the planet and the society? So I think this is a bit of negative on the product, and in terms of the resources and the wastage that it generates. And also this business can be under radar because of the regulatory framework in the future. So in my opinion, these are the 4 areas that if you merge what people want with a viable business model and the accessible technology for you, and it is creating an impact to the society and the planet. If you connect everything, this helps us to identify the innovation sweet spot. And today we are here in the event of Unbox Summit, organized by Amdocs India Innovation Team. There are 3 main purposes to do it: to bring in the diversity perspective in the innovation ecosystem, to provide an opportunity for all of us to learn from the experts. And we do have one expert with us today, and then tomorrow, and then Monday. And of course, to open up our minds in unlocking your innovation sweet spot. This is the first time that our innovation team is planned to open this event for the large innovation community outside Amdocs as well, which is LinkedIn Live. And thanks to our social media and the IT partners to making it live on the LinkedIn, which is much easier to attend and to the network. And we strongly believe in collaboration and working together with the community. Also, to keep your schedule tight, to keep considering about your schedules, we divided into various days so that you are devoting only 1 hour of your precious time. And that's the only ask that we are having. At last, I would like to urge you all to take best use of this summit and take back your learnings and make use of social media templates to share your experience regarding your innovation sweet spots. And check out our website for more details. Lastly, I would like to leave you to think about the Zomato innovation of 10 minutes delivery example from 2 days back. Think about where this fits in all these 4 principles and what different could have been done, instead of now they are explaining all over that why they are doing what they are doing and how they will handle it. Thank you so much, and wishing everyone happy learning experience from this event.
Thanks, Kamal. I mean, that was really interesting. You brought another fresh angle to the 3 tenets. You got the 4th one as well. And I really liked how you have asked us to engage on the social media. Thank you so much. I would allow me to move ahead with this, thanking Kamal. And now is the time to introduce and hear Samiran Ghosh, our guest speaker. And I'm more than elated to introduce him. So Samiran has many feathers in his cap. I'll just share a few here. He's a chief evangelist at Rockmetric, Forbes Tech Council member, and ex-chief digital advisor at Microsoft. Where he has launched platforms like connected vehicles, digital agriculture, and smart cities. He's also a TEDx speaker. Over and above that, you can hear him on Spotify. He's a podcast host of 3 Techies Banter, 3TB. So he has helped develop the application authentication framework of Aadhaar. And the last one is my favorite. He's a dog father to Toffee, his golden retriever. Amdocs welcomes you, Samiran. Over to you.
Thank you, Vibhuti. Yeah, and I think of all the things that you have said, I think the last one about Toffee usually gets all the laughs and all the smiles. Nobody really cares about the Forbes Technology Council or anything else anymore. But no, I'm really delighted to be here, and I hope I can do justice to the topic that you've given me. In fact, I was so happy when you listed this example from 1955, because at least there was something which was before I was born. Because normally when people give examples nowadays, it's always, with the current generation, they say, way back in 1990. I said, that's not so way back. I was born like 20 years before that also. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. And also the interesting paradigm that not so many companies exist. And obviously there are a whole bunch of reasons why that is the case. And we'll try and go into a few of them and see what we can, how we can decipher that. And what I'll do now is I'm just going to share my screen, and you can just tell me if you can see it, and then we can kind of go from. Great, yes. Great.
We do see a screen.
Perfect. So I think I think gentleman who came on the video, and I'm so sorry I've forgotten his name, but he kind of talked about how ideas are like unfettered children, and how you kind of let them out into the world and explore. Unfortunately, I think my topic is about now coaching, guiding, and mentoring those children, and shepherding and channelizing their energy towards something which will be productive and useful to organizations. Because ideas and creativity without direction becomes very difficult to sustain as an effort, at least within organizations. So I think that's at least the objective. And the goal at the end of this presentation is to at least get you thinking uh, about trying out new things at work with some degree of objectivity. So, it's not to say you shouldn't do something, but before you do, just think about, all the uh, uh, points that were laid out about the desirability, the viability, and all of that. My personal objective obviously would be to get you excited about constantly, the idea just about constantly trying out new things and keeping your mind open to possibilities of doing things, differently. So, constantly challenging yourself to see if you can do something differently. Uh, so, again, difficult to kind of take a topic like innovation and then kind of box it into some kind of framework. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to kind of start by give you some examples of the cool creative things that people have done, which are creative, but then we will kind of ask ourselves whether that's what innovation is. Then we'll kind of go to the other extreme and look at companies that are pure innovators, IP creators, and what they have done with themselves. Then we'll come back and try and define this space for ourselves. Look at what makes a good idea, what kind of incentives people get. Is innovation even profitable? And maybe take back some tools for ourselves to see what we can do. And since you guys are super smart people working at Amdocs, you probably know a lot of these things. But just in the interest of the overall audience, that if all of you were doing or following these practices, I think both as individuals as well as corporate citizens, I think you will kind of go a long way. So I've actually got a series of 2 or 3 examples here, okay? And I just thought I'll kind of, since we've got some very heavy examples that were stated like Nano, the Hike Messenger, the Nokia, which I thought was like super serious. I said, let me kind of look at the other end of the Indian Jugaad innovation. So this first is just about a guy taking milk, So really, is it really a cool idea? Yes, definitely. Is it labor saving? Yes. Did it take some amount of user understanding and subject matter expertise from the milkman to kind of arrive at this? Absolutely true. Is it really corporate innovation? Probably not, because there are a whole bunch of other factors that we'll talk about. So great idea, super creative, super cool, fun, but maybe not the greatest. This second one is a personal favorite of mine, and the reason is because I have actually clicked this picture. So this is actually in the Khelgaon, Delhi, where I had kind of gone, and I actually saw someone who had tied his car to a pole that was actually riveted to the ground. So again, I thought it was like, first of course, I thought it was hilarious. Then I thought it was like really interesting and extremely novel approach to physical security. Probably very effective as well. You can talk about it with friends, but is this an idea that which you would kind of take to your boss? Is this an idea that can scale? Again, probably not. So again, just something to kind of give some context to this. The third one is like killing 2 birds with 1 stone, or cooling 2 rooms with 1 pant, literally. So again, I mean, I've just kind of put these pictures out there to kind of just provoke some thinking and to say that people are extremely creative. People are extremely good with ideas. And they are not afraid to experiment it. Those ideas work in certain contexts, but would that kind of really constitute a corporate-wide innovation culture? That's something that we want to debate. The next one is a small, very short 10-second video, which was there on Twitter, which I kind of pulled down. If you have seen it, please excuse me. But it's like it again kind of brings to light what people are doing in the area of innovation. If for some reason, because of bandwidth, you're not able to see it, I'll just kind of hold the screen for 10 seconds and just move on to the next slide in the interest of time. So here you can see this is like a bit of a Harry Potter kind of thing. So for the people who cannot see it, it's really a guy who's trying to sort fruits by size, and he's got a box in line, and he's got this channel, and depending on the size of the fruit, it's falling in. So again, fantastic idea. It kind of was all over Twitter at some point. Great stuff. But again, would you really call this innovation? So again, something to debate about. So some of you may think, this seems to be really frivolous. What's he talking about? These are just fun things. But what I'm trying to really do is illustrate the point that a lot of people are super smart, super good, and they all have very, very great ideas. But not all of those ideas really translate into great solutions, great problems. They don't seem to be problems that everyone wants to solve. They don't seem to be problems which are feasible, viable, and all of that, which is the reason why sometimes some ideas which look extremely cool, case in point being the Google Glass, the Orkut example that was stated, the Nokia Windows Phone. So other people then took that idea and made something great with it, but obviously the people who did it first didn't reap the benefits. We'll kind of now shift gears a little bit, and we kind of go to the other extreme of this spectrum. This is a company I've actually worked with for 14 years. It's IBM, and if you know the history of IBM, that they have been the leaders in patent filing for the longest time. I mean, all the way back from 1996. So the whole attack here has been that IBM has been a company that has believed in, to that extent, believed in innovation. But this is like really research for research sake. So they kept on creating new ideas, new thoughts. I mean, the RDBMS was literally created in the IBM lab. They have patents for how the ThinkPad can be opened, the locking mechanism of the ThinkPad. They had something called the spoken web, and lots and lots of things. And all of these products, what they did was they did two things. One is that they licensed these products out to other people, which means sometimes the Twitters of the world, the Airbnbs of the world, all of them at some point have bought parts or buckets of patents from IBM, paid them for it, for which IBM makes a lot of money. And as you can see, that number is about 27 billion over these 20 odd years. The other thing IBM did very effectively, which is kind of a bit of a negative thing really, is that wherever they found people who were violating their patent or doing it without giving them credit, they used to kind of follow this whole process of litigation. So they used to go and find these people and file cases against them. And I mean, Groupon was a very famous case. I think they filed a case for about $83 million against them. And there's a whole bunch of other cases like that. So that's the other extreme, like I said, that these are scientists and researchers who are constantly developing new things. So I think even as late as 2020, 2021, IBM had filed 9,000 patents. So, that it's kind of pretty much like a machine that goes on. But what people are now saying is just with the whole Web3 world and, open source, this whole idea of ring fencing patents and all of that is kind of going to go away. This whole model of working for IBM will cease to exist. And their whole acquisition of Red Hat was probably a case in point. They want to kind of move to an open. So but with this example, what I really wanted to do is to kind of give you that contrast between individual creativity and the whole system of Jugaad at one end, and this whole systematized method of technology discovery and monetization, which is IBM at the other end. And as is quite obvious, we kind of want to lie somewhere in between that. We want to be able to have extremely great ideas and we want to be able to monetize them, but we don't want to actually uh, be the people who are creating patents and selling them and filing suits against people. So what really is innovation? So I can just start by telling you what it is not. So it's really not about people in t-shirts playing table tennis or people in uh, basements or colorful campuses or offices doing crazy stuff. It's not about the greatest and grandest of technologies. It's really it's just about small changes, fundamental, basically changes that make life easier, simplify interactions, just add to productivity, just simple things. Couple of examples that are, I mean, the example is Google itself. I mean, before it came, nobody wanted that search bar to be just the bar. So, they just felt that people just want search, they don't want anything else. So that was it. The other example, I mean, if you guys know, there's this company called Superhuman. They have so it's like it's a pretty cool company because what they have done is that they've just kind of created a little skin or a layer over Gmail, and what they promise you is increased productivity by 15 or 30%. It's it's a testimony to their marketing that you can only get invited to be a subscriber of Superhuman. They have a half an hour onboarding process and a lot of bells and whistles. But essentially, all it is, just when you thought that nothing new could be done with email, they have just kind of committed to give you productivity by just using your same Gmail, and they charge about $30 a month. That's at least when I last checked. So again, a very, very basically very interesting uses of uh, technology, interesting end uses, and things that have long-term benefits. So simply put, really, what I really wanted to draw a distinction here is that uh, creativity is a good thing. It's extremely important because it fosters unique ideas. It is one. It is a. It is one of the very key elements of innovation. However, it is not synonymous with innovation. So creativity and innovation, to that extent, I'd like to kind of draw a distinction. Innovation is really about uh, it's a product, service, it's a business model, it could be a strategy. It, uh, it doesn't have to be a major breakthrough, which I've kind of said before. It just can be simple upgrades to customer service, to features, just an easy way of doing things. So I think just when you are thinking of innovation, I mean, don't kind of uh, be pressured into thinking that my idea is not grand enough to be an innovation. And I'll kind of illustrate this with a few examples that I've kind of got on the following page. And and what I've tried to do is kind of give you examples from my own personal experience, because all of the other experiences are pretty much just a Google search away. Just going from left to right, I'll just tell you. So when I was at IBM, this is about there was a point in time in the history of IBM where we were actually thinking of shutting this center. And the reason for that is because travel costs were through the roof. Just because of safety issues, we had to provide sumo taxi service for every employee and then do complex charting of routes and all that. And it came to a point it became very expensive. So, what the center manager did actually was very, very interesting. He actually called 10, 15 people from the different project teams together. And he said, this is our problem. This is the situation. We have one option, which is, discontinue the sumo and have employee decide, or, it could come as far as shutting down, but can you come up with something? So I think long and short of it, everybody brainstormed. There had to be we came up with some idea of cost sharing. We kind of converted the sumos into buses. We did a lot of route rationalization. So again, not super innovation in that sense, but solved the problem, let the center go on. Everybody kind of owned into the solution, and all in all, a great success. The next example is a little from uh, McKinsey. So I won't go into the team deployment. I mean, McKinsey has a very, when they deploy to clients, unlike other places, at least where I have been, they make sure that anything and everything is provided to that team so that they uh, perform to their best. And by that, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised when I was working with them, is that, I mean, not only, I mean, they provide you with printers, whiteboards in that big room. They provide you with, I mean, I don't know, they have snacks. I mean, in the sense, while these might sound trivial, but they have streamlined that process such that that project team doesn't need to leave that room for anything, and they only need to work. And that second point that I have there is actually very important. In the McKinsey office, they have a very simple thing. I don't know how many happen to how many of you, when you reach your office, you've forgotten your charger, maybe your mobile charger, maybe your laptop charger. So they just have this little bin there where all kinds of charges are kept, and it works on a trust system. So if you reach office and you don't have, you've forgotten your charger, you just pick it up from there, use it for the day, and keep it back. So again, like I said, not something fantastic, but very effective. Moving along. So for all of you who have traveled to the US, in the US public libraries, they have this beautiful system of book donation, where you are free to give your books. Any book can be donated, but the converse of that is a very interesting thing, which for me was very unusual, is that from those pile of donated books, anyone can borrow any book, and it's a completely trust-based system. For those books, they don't even write things down. Their only objective is to increase the habit of reading and increase the habit of donation. So the people who donate books, and the people who borrow the books obviously read them, then they come back and donate, and that whole virtuous cycle goes on. The next one is obviously elections in India, and actually there is a document out in the Election Commission. I don't even want to go into it. They've listed 101 innovations that they have had to do just to run elections effectively in a country like India. And you will be shocked and surprised to hear all of the kind of things that, right from election education to execution to going to homes of people with disability to holidays to planning crashes in election centers, and there's a whole host of them. So again, just to kind of give you a sense of that. And in fact, a couple of others which are probably have some basis in Aadhaar or don't, is one is the whole RuPay network. Okay, so one of the big reasons why we are still able to get oil from Russia, and we were still trading with Iran when there were embargo, is because we have our own payment system which we can actually link with another payment system without going through SWIFT. So that's a big thing in India. The other thing, whether you know it or not, is that this whole issue of OTP and two-factor authentication, it actually kind of started in India. And it's really not available in very many parts of the world, or at least wasn't available. If you've actually tried paying for stuff in the US, nobody really asks you for two-factor authentication. Here are just some more examples about things that people have done innovatively. The only word of caution here is that some of these things have will become commercial successes, others won't. But I was just shocked and surprised to see all the stuff that people are doing. And again, this is again no secret. If you kind of go to the Better India site and just look for innovation, you'll find a whole host of these in India as well as internationally, where there's a ton of stuff going on in the world of innovation. People are doing work with solar energy. People are doing work with electric vehicles, for climate change, or just some other simple what should I say? Efficient electrical use of electricity, power efficient appliances, and what have you. So that comes to the question of whether this whole effort is really profitable. Uh, so I mean, there are. I mean, while there are, there's no difference of opinion, but some people have actually tried to put a number to it, and people have felt that people who are constant and repeated innovators are able to outperform others, or over a period of time there is this reflects in their either in their market capitalization or even in their profitability numbers. So this is from a Bain study that was done in 2019. So just to illustrate the point, that innovation which follows certain principles is definitely profitable. And I think this was already covered earlier, but I'll just kind of quickly breeze through this so that we have some time for questions at the end. Uh, so how do you really choose ideas? How do you kind of decide that something's good for you? Uh, I think there are five things really that I can think of. One, the people culture, the desirability, whether it's strategic or not, whether it's feasible, whether it's viable. For people, it's like, do we really have the right team and people in place? And by this we mean that are all the people working on that idea the right people to be there? Desirability is really about, does somebody really want this problem to be solved? Strategic is, is this aligned to our strategy? This needs to be kind of applied a little carefully, because sometimes you may have an idea which is kind of completely different and which may have far-reaching consequences. But more or less, this is the thinking. Feasibility is really, can we deliver this solution that they wanted at a price they want? So going back to my chain and car story, it's well, it's a great idea for then and there. You probably can't do this anywhere and everywhere, so it's probably not feasible. And can we make money doing this? So I think that's a really simple one to kind of implement. Moving forward, so to keep this in play, what do companies do to boost innovation? So, of course, by no means am I saying that Amdocs needs to start doing this, but uh, there are two or three things really that people do. One is tap into your ecosystem, and mm, while here it says that experienced innovators have more than 3.5x the number of partners. One of the companies I think that does this really effectively is Microsoft. Microsoft has actually grows by partners. So for every $1 that Microsoft earns on itself, about $9 is earned by their partner, and it still kind of is a $1 trillion company. So while I'm not giving that as an example, saying that that is what makes Microsoft innovative, I'm definitely just illustrating the point that the ability to grow through partnerships is a very, very effective strategy, and it also works with innovation. The next one, of course, is reward. The third one, which is very important, is the fact that you need to uh, cultivate this whole culture of people being problem solvers. So everything. If you are able as an organization to see an opportunity in every problem, and you are able to kind of convert that into a solution or situation that you can work towards and solve, I think you would have gone a long way in promoting innovation as a culture and innovation as a without any threat perception, and therefore also encourage risk takers. So I think that is a little bit there. Moving on, so like I had said, I just wanted to cover all of these points and leave some time for Q&A. And so where does that really take us next? So again, because you are a technology company, this is again not something very unusual or unknown to you. But I'm just for the sake of completeness, I'm going to say this, that but all of us are used to this, doing things in short bursts and sprints, and we use that very, very extensively in development cycles. But where I have also seen this being used extremely effectively in what we call design sprints. And while I don't want to get into the theory of what is a sprint and all of that, because that will be like preaching to the choir, because I think you guys already know that very well. What I would really recommend is that for all of you to definitely uh, read this book. If you don't take away anything else from this presentation, just do make sure that you read this book. It's written by three partners at Google Ventures, and it talks about this 5-day process for solving tough problems. And it's been proven with more than 100 companies. And it really talks about what's the most important place to focus your effort. uh, how do you start? What will your idea look like in real life? How many meetings, discussion does it take, and all? So it's really like a big manual of everything that you need to do to get there. It's been tested with Fortune 500 companies, with teachers, with communities, with non-profits. If you're already aware of it and you know it and you're using it in practice, fantastic. If you haven't, then do get a copy of this book and read it. It will give you a very good ringside seat, as well as tools and techniques on how should you structure a innovation process in your head. That itself will kind of bring some order and method into all the ideas that are overflowing in your head. And with that, I think I'm going to kind of bring my part of the formal presentation to a close. Uh, you can reach out to me. I'm available on Twitter. Like Vibhuti said, this is we just started a small podcast in December. It's kind of very coincidentally was a trending podcast in India. We kind of just take a fun look at technology. Uh, and thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you guys. I look forward to whatever questions you have, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. If you obviously, if it remains unanswered, I'm happy to kind of take them up later. So with that, thank you very much for listening to me so patiently. I hope it was useful to you, and I'm open to take whatever questions you have.
Thank you, Samiran. That was really very insightful. We started with 3 tenets, then we reached to 4 and 5. Now we realized it's a complete method to go through it. So that was really exciting to hear. And especially, I like the illustrations that you've used, the real life examples as well. We have some questions over here from our audiences. I would like to take a few.
Sure.
So Bipin is asking, desirability is subjective to customer state of awareness.
Yes, and I think this is something that's been made famous by Steve Jobs, who said that the customer doesn't know what they want and we want it. So which is well and good, and so you need the person of Steve Jobs's vision to kind of then figure out what you need. But the whole point of putting desirability as a checklist is that it just makes you think that does someone really want it out there, or are you aware of it? If you're building something completely out of this world and you're convinced that it's the right thing and you can convince other people to give you money for it, nobody can stop you. Please go ahead. But generally that whole desirability factor has really been kept to just as act as a guardrail to say that, have I done the due diligence? So that's really the reason. It's obviously subjective. You're absolutely right.
Right, very right. It's due diligence. Chandrakant has one more question. He is curious to know, are there, you have discussed about certain principles to have a successful, innovation. So can you elaborate these principles and, maybe a little bit of crisp of examples where you can take how you understand innovation and make it successful?
So I'll tell you what. So I've just kind of the reason I put those four. So if you start reading literature, there is a whole bunch of frameworks and approaches and things that can be done. But my submission to you only is that if you are looking at making a choice of trying to pick up an idea to solve, if you just follow those few things which are about the team, the desirability, feasibility, viability, and strategic intent, I think that in itself should give you a simplified view. And I would definitely urge you to actually read that book called Sprint, because I don't want to go into the theory, but if you actually read the book, and it's probably, in fact, actually, I have it right here. So not that I'm marketing it, but the thing is that it's got a whole bunch of tools, techniques. How should a room be set up? How should whiteboard be? What should you have? So just kind of go through that. You will get all your answers in it. I mean, it's no rocket science, but all it teaches you is a simplified step-by-step method to go from your idea to an executable product offering process or whatever it happens.
All right. Thanks for that answer. In fact, adding a book to your closet is one more good idea, but then reading is another level. All right. So I have one question from Subshan. I hope I pronounced his name right. So he's writing, how much related is creativity and innovation? So does creativity can always be considered as innovation? That's an interesting question.
No. So see, absolutely. So like I told you, right? I mean, you can be as creative as you want, and I think the only point we were trying to kind of draw a distinction between creativity and innovation is the fact that you look at it through the fit to market kind of lens. That you can be as creative. I mean, was the Nano creative? Of course, a car under 1 lakh. When I was in Europe, they said, wow, you're coming out with a car which is like 200 euros or less. It's crazy. Google Glass, was it a great idea? I mean, was it creative? I'm sure it was. But I think innovation cannot do without creativity, but innovation needs much more than just creativity is the point here. That you need to be sure that you're really solving a problem and you can solve it consistently. You can create what you're doing at a cost that people will buy, and all of those things, or unless you can just price it at anything and people will buy it. I mean, that's completely, I mean, that's a different thing. But I think that is the way to kind of look at the difference between the two.
I got it. And it makes a really good point. There's someone who's asking, Anshul Jain, he's asking, there was mention about compensation for innovation. So does money really motivates innovation, or the necessity motivates it? I guess.
So yeah, I mean, see, I think what you're kind of asking is like a philosophical question, is that, should I be self-motivated if I'm an innovator? But I think the answer there is that from an organization's point of view, you are trying to reinforce and reward behavior and show, and I'm not saying that you should compensate for success. I'm saying you should compensate for innovation and risk taking, which means you are now sending a signal across the enterprise that we are okay for you to take risks. We are open to free thinking, and that's why that incentive is being provided from a organization side. See, because we can kind of stretch this argument to say that if you're doing a job that you really love, do you really need to be paid also? But you need to be paid. So, and therefore your work needs to be recognized. And just remember, the other thing is that the symbolism will also make other people follow you. So if somebody, by being a risk taker, is being rewarded, is being idolized, other people may say, okay, great, I have great ideas. I never thought so. Let me try. So I think those are different issues at play.
I got it. Right. So definitely motivating by some or the other means is necessary, but necessity is a major reason, or a problem solving is a major reason why innovation is required in organization. Right. We have one more from Manoj. He's saying that to him, innovation is not always inventing something. It sometimes is revisiting the existing processes and policies to refine or improve or increase the productivity and profits. How much aligned are you with this thought?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I right at the beginning, I said that this is not about building a grand product or building the next quantum computer. It is just about, rationalizing, rebalancing, moving things around here and there. I mean, anything that delivers value, improves productivity, contributes, cuts out cost, or just kind of makes life better from the before to the after period. I think it all qualifies. It doesn't have to be fantastic.
Correct. So we should not be in a false aspiration of always creating something big or, aspiring to reach something like a moon. But it should be always that we make our daily life better way by improving and improvising with small innovations that we can do, right?
Absolutely agree with you.
Right. Okay. So Bipin is inspired by the illustrations, the simple illustrations of Jugaad that you had shown. And he's asking, can you elaborate more on Jugaad versus innovation as such?
So, okay, so I'll tell you. So this thing is always, everyone loves talking about the Indian jugaad and, how you fix things. So in my head, at least, a jugaad solution really is something that a person, a group of people solve a particular, very specific, pointed solution in a specific place, in a specific environment. Innovation is really the industrialized version of that thing. So can that solution really be industrialized for the greater good? So, if one guy is, like you saw that putting a chain, or somebody is like putting that milk and doing that, can it really happen everywhere? Can it be done at a cost? Who will buy it? So those are the issues. So I think Jugaad is not to be kind of disregarded. It is definitely a bedrock of how we do things differently. And this is the thing. So I can give you so many examples, which may not really be classic. So Hindustan Lever for the longest time used to sell Lifebuoy in India, and it was a carbolic soap, and nobody could figure out why it was selling in India. But that's because in India, you used to use that soap to wash buffaloes. So nobody knew how that happened. Then Videocon washing machines used to be used in Punjab to make lassi. So so that's jugaad, but that's not innovation. I mean, you now Videocon cannot start selling washing machines to make lassi now. So, but so that's the difference between jugaad and innovation.
Absolutely right. That's true. But then we have seen some brilliant jugaad, especially lately, in Shark Tank. I'm not sure how many people must have been following, but then people have come out with excellent innovative ideas to solve problems. Maybe some of were not so much regarded by the Shark Tanks. You remember the zip line one, and but then they are innovation in their own sense. They thought it's a problem.
No, absolutely.
Right. So I have one more question from Sangeeta, and looks like she's a teacher. So she's not from Amdocs. She's asked how students' creativity can be applied, and how can you groom the innovation in them? Because at that tender age, they have a lot of creativity.
So I'm not an expert on, teaching students and all that, but I think the best way to do that is to at least provide them with some applied problems to solve. And maybe in your case, it could be some problems in the school, maybe I don't know, dustbin collection, or maybe lunch hour breaks can be rationalized, how classes can be made shorter, longer, how breaks can be optimized, or anything. I mean, I have no way of knowing what the right thing is. But if you give them with problems which are contextual to them, are dear to them, maybe how you can go rationalize the school bus line or whatever it is,
Right.
and see how they apply. I think that will keep them engaged. And and maybe there are problems, principles of math and principles of science and whatever else that can be applied. So I mean, that's the best answer I can give. That give them problems that are there in their own environment that they can kind of try and figure out and solve.
Right, involving them, in any of the areas where we can apply them.
Correct.
Thanks. So we have question from Nandan. He's asking, technically, what is the first step for innovation?
I think identifying the problem actually you want to solve. I mean, I think, I think in my head, I think that too. I mean, maybe you're a person who has tons of ideas. So then maybe you have all sorts of ideas and you now are looking for a problem. But ideally, I mean, there has to be a felt need. I mean, if you want to approach it in a systemic way, there has to be a felt need for that problem, or there should be a felt discomfort or a or an issue somewhere, either in the process or in the supply chain. And once that's there, once that need is recognized, I think is the genesis of any ideation of fixing, because there should be enough people who see it as a problem and want to fix it, want to divert some resources towards it. So I think ideally that would be it. Of course, there could be people who, uh, by themselves think about problems and think about how they can solve. So that's a different issue. But systemically, I think there needs to be an issue, a problem that needs to be identified and crystallized before you can kind of start doing something.
Right. I think so. Identifying a correct problem and framing a correct problem statement as well, because the
Absolutely.
problem statement will define the scope. You cannot try to achieve everything in one go.
Correct.
I can understand, right? So there's one more question from an anonymous attendee. His question is, any correlation between reverse engineering and innovation?
See, I mean, I don't think there is like an empirical listing, but I think it's to the extent that it could be an approach, is that obviously if you are trying to figure out that what makes some product better than others, or what makes the uh, iPhone better than other things, or what makes any more, what makes the Swiss knife better than others, or whatever, then I think reverse engineering becomes an approach where you kind of figure out how it has really been created, and then you kind of go to the root and see if you can apply it elsewhere. So or the other way of doing it is that, if you are trying to short circuit the process of some X thing, and you find a complementary or similar product, and you kind of use reverse engineering as a way to figure out, how are these guys doing it, and it could be an unallied field. So for the longest time, people have been trying to fix the problem of turnaround time, and the classical example that everybody takes is Formula One car racing. The pit crew in the Formula One car race, that they have the fastest turnaround time ever, like it's down to 2.5 seconds or something. So can you set up a process that will give you, so to that extent it is reverse engineering, but you cannot directly apply it elsewhere. So you have to be careful what you reverse engineer and find out. But yes, it could definitely act as an input.
Right. It can be a method of finding a solution. Right. Okay. So I have a question from one more audience, and could you please? I'm not sure if I understood this question. Will try to read it. Could you please explain how to make bus pass with QR capturing, identify expired pass and well as easy while seeing passes in the bus with some lights?
So I don't know. I mean, if the issue is really that whether you want to figure out a way to create a bus pass with a QR code to be scanned and for expiry, I mean, I think that's a fairly simple way to do it. I think the issue really is that I would just kind of go back and say that, while the technology for all of this exists, I would just say that, what is the problem that you're really causing you to do this? I mean, is it ease of congestion somewhere? Is it that what are you hoping to improve by doing this? I think if you can answer that question, then that solution, or whatever you're trying to suggest, will kind of automatically come up. I mean, I don't want, technically what you're saying already exists, scanning of QR codes, recognizing and all of that, validating it against a backend system, all of that exists. But I would just figure out what is it that you're trying to solve, would be the first question.
Yeah, I guess so. The question was very much the same, trying to automate the checking of bus pass, if I understood correctly. Okay. Next question is from Santosh. Innovation, creativity, thinking different is all part of culture and day-to-day need. In such PUCA world, sorry, I'm not sure what.
The VUCA world, yeah, okay. Yeah.
world.
Oh,
And
so,
yeah.
So what's the question? So
And especially when we have so much vendors and people love smartness than hard work. So I think so. This is a general understanding
observation.
that, yeah,
Okay.
observation
Okay. All
that
right.
he has and he shared over here. Okay, any more questions? So, all right, I think so. We have also sum up with time. Thanks a lot, Samiran. It was really interesting, especially the engaging questions that our audiences had today. They were really interesting, and got some more insights to what we have discussed in all of the sessions. Thanks. I would like to wrap up, and thanks all the audiences to stay with us till the end. And we will hope to see you tomorrow again in the event, and we'll wait for more responses of you. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Samiran. That was really nice.
Thanks, Vibhuti. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Samiran.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.